Oh my gosh. What a privilege. Huh? So maybe put a hand over your own heart. And whatever presencing yourself means to you, to be aware that something is breathing you. So as we proceed tonight, we do so consciously. We do so not only thinking and studying and reflecting and contemplating what the mystic Jesus message is, but what being a mystic like Jesus was being would be. We devote ourselves to this. We offer ourselves up. We're aware that we're in the presence of pure being, that we are the presence of pure being. And we proceed cultivating mindfulness, aligning and realigning ourselves as divine presence in divine presence, here and now, and throughout this study, throughout this night, throughout this month, this series, and throughout our lives and all realms of our life. We give thanks. So be it. Okay, well, that wraps up our session for tonight.
Boy, it went fast.
Everybody, what about your day? Go play some golf or something. Whatever we need to do here. So, any questions? Let's start. Anything on your heart or mind that we covered last week? What you've experienced since then? What you've been reading? Anything in the text? Just let's open the floor a minute and just see where anything you want to throw out here in the field. I've got plenty. Ron, go ahead.
There's a powerful meditation in chapter 5 where it's under the section called sickness, and it's a suggestion of a meditation on connecting with Jesus, and I found that very powerful.
Thank you for saying it. In chapter 5, a meditation in the chapter on healing, is that what you said?
Yeah, I think it's chapter 4, but it's
4.
under the section on sickness.
Got it. Thank you, Ron.
Mhm.
Jill, go ahead, honey.
Here we go. Yeah, I got a lot out of your 7 times 70 forgiveness. And I started with the prayer on page 19. And what was most powerful for me was, please help me see this differently. And the first day I did 70 forgiveness. And the first 10 were extremely difficult. And I've done a lot of forgiveness work through my years. And I know that when I was trying to forgive my father, I did a whole lot of forgiveness work, but it took a long time, years maybe, before I felt it. So I honored the fact that after that first day and that first 10, that sometimes it was just kind of rote. But the beautiful part for me was that I don't know if it was the second day or the third day, but I just I had all these tears, and that was really powerful to have the tears. And by the time, maybe it was the first day, and by the time I got through with the 70, then I went downstairs and Dan said, "How was it?" And I just started boo-hooing. So I know that even though I don't feel forgiveness for some people that I was talking about in my forgiveness, I know that it's working because of my experience with my dad. And so I wanted to honor that. And then I went to the women's group on Saturday, and something came up at the women's group, and then when I was doing my forgiveness work, 70 times 7, I found myself, after, in the middle of saying that, I found myself saying, what was it? I forgive myself. And I can't think of that.
Forgive and approve.
I wholly and completely forgive myself.
Approve and forgive myself. I wholly and completely. Well, this was, it went from that wholly and completely forgive myself and others to I honor myself. I honor, and it's a Louise Hay thing, but for some reason it's not coming to me now. But I've also found that during the day, that mantra continued to play in my head. And I thought, by golly, this is working. Even if I don't feel the forgiveness, I know it's working.
And the group says, amen, honey. So that's ours to do, Jill. If we're going to do this, if we're going to actually put some action to this, it's like I surrender to the outcomes, and then I do the invitations. I do what's been put forth as a possibility that could be really beneficial here. And hopefully we'll get a few other takeaways like that tonight, honey, that you get to say that forgiveness is just a concept.
Yes.
Only a concept until it is embodied.
Yes. And the affirmation that came to me was, that I had said many other times, I love and approve of myself. And that just, I used to do forgiveness work looking in the mirror with Louise Hay, and I could hardly do that without just bawling. So that affirmation came to me as I was, after the women's group, and I was toying with some ideas, and that was such a, I love myself.
We may get another dose of it. Are you ready? We'll see. We'll see how tonight goes, honey. I've got a few forgivenesses up my sleeve. And I've got a few that's calling for some attention too. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah, thank you, honey. Thank you too. And thank you for sharing it and for testing it out, honey, for doing what we're here to do, to kind of let the rubber meet the road, so to speak. So let's think about then going forward, what we're going to do, how we're going to do this. And I hear this pretty regularly. Some of the folks in Louisville, I served up there for several years, and they used to say, now, Reverend Martha, you tell us what to do all the time. You're always telling us what to do. However, how are we supposed to do it? How am I supposed to be a mystic? How am I supposed to forgive the unforgivable? How am I supposed to forgive my knucklehead brother? How am I going to write 70 times 7? I wholly and completely forgive him. I wholly and completely forgive him. I wholly and completely forgive him. With the mind so active to say, that's nonsense. You do not have to write that. You have already done your forgiveness work. You're bordering ascension. You know, just don't worry about that. That forgiveness is for everybody else in the class. That's not for you. So this is what we're up against here. And how to be with that part of the unhealed, unquestioned, unintegrated, disintegrated part of our mind and not let it lead, not let it run the show. To say, even with it carrying on like that, I'm going to give this a fair test. Even with its resistance, I'm going to see if I can get around it. I'm just going to get a pen and paper and see if I have it in me to write down 70 times, I wholly and completely forgive him, whoever your him is. I wholly and completely forgive her, whoever your her is. And I wholly and completely forgive myself. And you'll get to have your own experience of it, and including the resistance of it, likely. So, Paul, go ahead.
Well, it just brought to mind, of course, the Greek word for forgive. I have almost had to let go of the word forgive because it is so theologically packed with things that we're required to do in order to get something as well. But because I always equate forgiveness with forgive and forget, which is not even possible to
Right.
do. But there are several other words that have helped me to deal with the same issue, and that is the same word that is translated as forgive can also be translated as to let go, to release, to dismiss, to disregard, even to divorce is the same word as forgive. Sometimes forgiveness does not mean you've got to keep letting it happen to you. And then on the other end of it, it also can mean to allow or to permit. When Jesus said, permit the little children come unto me, that's the same word as forgive.
Yeah.
So in some ways, sometimes we have to learn to allow that memory to fade a little further in the past by not putting ourselves in situations constantly to habitually bring that thought back into our mind. So we have to sometimes have to permit it to go. So, some of those words have helped me specifically just to let it go. And when I think of forgiving somebody 70 times 7 times, it's not that I have to let them hurt me that many times. It's the 70 times 7 might refer to the number of times it comes to mind every day, and I have to let it go and pick another thought that helps me stay away from that thought. So
Thank you. Thank you, honey. Whatever helps. Use whatever helps. So I'll put forward some practices tonight, among other things that I'll do. And then Reverend Denise has got her way of approaching this. So some of what we offer is bound to be beneficial. And it has been to me. And I know in some ways it will be to you. So think about then what will I do? So I'll put a few things over here in the chat and then read them out loud. So what am I going to do? Which is to embrace a present moment. So when I notice I'm triggered, when I notice I've been offended, irritated, let down, frustrated, crossed sideways, their eyes rolled at me, whatever's going on, to do nothing, to say nothing, to not react to this if it can be interrupted until I presence myself. Presence myself, whether it's a big deep breath, a hand on my heart, a mantra, call the name Jesus, call the name love. Like I'm presencing myself here before I react. If the instinctual knee-jerk reaction can be interrupted, that I'm going to be enough in the moment that I'm going to be more able to respond than to react. The second one is what we're talking about a lot, and we'll practice some more, hopefully, a radical forgiveness. So in the group that I'm leading called Extraordinary Leaders, their assignment for this month was to make a resentment list. So see if any of you are willing to do it. It shows us what's left. Even if you've already done all your forgiveness, you think, if you put a pen in your hand and write down the words, I resent blank because, you may be amazed at what pours out. I resent blank because. And I have done this extensively, still do, and I would have a whole list for my mother, a whole list for my father, a whole list for brother one, a whole list for brother two, a whole list for my nephew, a whole list for people that lazy people, people that are irresponsible, blamers. So there's no limit to this. Who do you resent and what for? So it'll keep us fostering this inner peace, fostering our own inner healing, and living as mystic, which doesn't mean I'm going to be immune from this, but that I'm going to meet the humanness with a practice. I'm going to meet my own humanness and the human spectrum with a devotion to be different with it than irritated. I'm going to use the irritations, the upsets, the frustrations as medicine, so to speak. And 3, to engage in daily prayer, no joke. To pray every single day, at least during this course. You might call silent unity every day. The last time I did this, I committed to call silent unity every day for 30 straight days. To have someone to pray with me, to have someone to pray for me, and to have a witness to my own prayers. You might do it with a prayer partner, someone that you say, hey, I know they're into prayer. I'm just going to reach out to them and say, hey, I've got this mystic Jesus thing going on, and I'm devoted to mysticizing myself, and I'm going to pray every day for 30 days. Can you join me? To find a prayer partner, for example. To establish a consistent devotional practice with the divine and to nurture my own spiritual growth. Does any of this sound familiar? Make sense? Now, before I launch into the other how-tos or how maybe-tos, I want to play a piece of music. And I'm going to encourage you to just hear the music as though you've never heard it before. It'll be familiar to some of you. It won't be familiar to some of you. And it won't be your preference for some of you. And I'm going to invite you in the spirit of openness, in the spirit of healing, reconciliation, awakening, to just try it. Just see what listening to this, what you feel, what you think, what you get.
What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. What a peace we often forfeit. Oh, needless pain we bear. All because we do not care to be everything to God in prayer. every trials and temptations. Is there trouble anywhere? We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Can we find a friend so faithful who our sorrow share? Jesus knows our every weakness. Take it to the Lord in prayer.
Any reactions, insights, takeaways, Jane?
Well, this is heresy. I don't like country music, but I like this song a lot. It speaks to how I feel about Jesus. As a friend, a brother, and I came to that through A Course in Miracles, of course. So it was a wonderful choice. Thank you.
Thank you too. And thanks for staying open to it, honey, and getting around whatever your strong preference is for it.
Oh, yeah, well, about that, let me just finish. When I first started reading A Course in Miracles, I had strong preferences against Jesus. I had been beat up by the Bible, being a Southern child. So I was like, I don't want to hear about Jesus. But as I came to understand what they were presenting him as in A Course in Miracles, and now this book, I completely got over it. I got it.
Yeah. Well, it's something to, we all have what you're describing, Jane, to a degree. Either something against religion, some way that we were misled about that or misunderstood about a teacher, a spiritual teacher, Jesus, even what it all means. So I hope that this will open us up to have a redefined relationship with this and what could be possible, whether it's Jesus or Mary or Kuan Yin or whoever we go to in this song, Go to God in Prayer, that becomes something more than a platitude for us during this season that we're in, which happens to be Lent, of course, and during this month of study. Jill, Dan, one of y'all, you got your hand up, honey, go ahead.
What came up for me was when I was sent off to boarding school in the 10th grade, and it was the first time I had not been in my home, living in my parents. I was kind of on my own with a bunch of people I didn't know anywhere, and out of somewhere, I just said, I'm just going to walk around with Jesus. I'm just going, every conversation, Jesus is standing right there and they're standing right there. And that was before my metaphysical days, but that was just something that I didn't feel scared, but I felt it was appropriate for me that I had someone familiar standing there, and I made it as genuine as I could possibly make it, which is another thing that has come up tonight, which is two versions of genuine, which is a genuine question always gets a genuine answer with spirit, but also a genuine effort into prayer, into doing some practice will give a genuine response. So I really believe in that.
It's powerful, honey. It shows in you. Yeah. So a genuine prayer a genuine response, a genuine outreach, a generous receiving. Marion, go ahead. Will you unmute so we can hear?
I did. Sorry, I'm learning all this. I'm the odd one because what it brought up for me was turning my head. It brings back all the Baptist stuff and all the stuff that was said and you felt ashamed, you felt guilty, you weren't worthy. So it wasn't so much about Jesus as it was about what it brought back. There's a lot of things back there. And I haven't, when I first started going to Unity, they didn't talk about Jesus. It was like, okay, he was a way shore. And that helped me feel like it. Then we had a meditation one time where we were actually walking with Jesus. And I had one when we sat down. I'll be your odd one in the group, I'm sure. I'm still relating who is God, where is God? I know God's not on a mountain up there, and I work with that. So I'm sharing things with people I don't know, but I call it the guys. And it's not that I'm being non-feminist or anything, but I believe I think we all have angels. I believe I have an angel and Jesus, and I call it the essence of all that is. Those are the three things. But when that came on, I literally went, okay, this class is not supposed to be like this. But then it said, take it to God in prayer, and my prayer protection is one of the things that I rely on a lot too.
Yeah,
But yeah,
very simple. Yeah, so thank you for your honesty about it. And I was prepared for that. Reverend Denise and I talked about it, that it would absolutely be haunting even to some. And my prayer about it was that we could hear it differently, and to hear it aside from the way that we heard it maybe as children, or how we were raised, or the meaning that was given to that. Because the lyrics of it are actually this: what a friend we have in Jesus. And we spoke about this last week.
right.
What if we saw Jesus as a friend, like Dan was describing, someone to invoke? I'm here. I sent you. I see you. I want to communicate with you. I've got a genuine prayer. I've got a genuine question. I've got genuinely something on my heart that I want you to witness and to share in the burden of this with me.
Well, that's what I've been doing more so and more so. That's why I called it the guys. Yeah.
So Jesus as a friend to bear any of our mistakes, any of our sins, our sorrows, our griefs. Jesus as a friend to share in that bearing with us, in that burden with us. The next line is, what a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. What a privilege. We have a privilege to do this. And most of us are addicted to stewing, addicted to being irritated, addicted to being frustrated, being injustice collectors, instead of, I've got to go directly to source and offload this, unburden myself from this, and to do it quick. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. Oh, what needless pain we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. We have trials and temptations. There's trouble everywhere. We should not be discouraged. Take it all to the Lord in prayer? Have we found a friend so faithful who will our sorrows share? Jesus knows our every part. Take it all to God in prayer. Or suffer. Deb, Pat, bear with me just a minute. Deb, are you want to speak, honey? You took your hand down.
I was just gonna say, it's not my favorite form of country. I would have said it's not my favorite song. And I can honestly say I would normally shut down, and I thought, no, Martha said, try and listen to it again. And there's nothing better than the "What a Friend We Have in Jesus, Take It to the Lord in Prayer" that I never even hear anymore, as well as everything else in the whole song. And it causes me to think, what else, because of the package, am I missing, ignoring, not seeing the blessing in? So I just want to share.
Say it again, honey. Say it again.
What else
What
because of
else?
the package am I
What is
missing?
because of a package, and am I missing the gift inside of a package that I've already imagined what is in the package? That I won't even open a package. I won't even open a gift because my know-it-all mind has already formed
Right,
what it's about, what it means, what's in it.
right.
Thank you,
I've
Precious.
heard those words in years, many, many years.
Yeah. Pat, go ahead, honey, and thanks for waiting.
Oh, no problem. Coming from a different perspective, it put a big smile on my face. And Jane, I don't think of that as country. The person that was singing it was country. To me, this is an old gospel song. And this song, like, oh, I Walk in the Garden with Him, to me, it says that what came before this current way of understanding Jesus and thinking does not mean that that baby has been thrown out with the bathwater. And it puts a smile on my face and brings me a warmth and a connection, not to the, and fortunately, you know, I was raised Protestant, so I didn't have lots of bad stuff, but Congregationalist, but it's just so warm. And again, it's part of this journey we're on to stay in curiosity, I guess, and pull from so many different places. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you too, Pat. And you know, that is how it is for me too, Pat. Like, but curiosity as an activation. Like, I have activated a new curiosity about this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to approach things differently with curiosity in the lead as a superpower of what does this song actually say?
Yeah.
What are the lyrics here? What if I opened my mind to this? And what if I do some of these practices, which includes presencing myself and listening to a song differently? It means the next little list that I've got here for our next session, next possible practices, before I hand this over to Denise to do a section for us, includes extending compassion to all, to extend sympathy, empathy, kindness to myself and others, and to literally recognize the divinity in this. And we claim we do this. We claim, oh, we're all one, we're all one, we're all one. It's like, well, yeah, we're all one, but that knucklehead. Yeah, no, not that. No. So something else is going on over there. Versus, and it doesn't mean, as Paul said earlier, it doesn't mean I've got to have dinner with them or bring them over. Don't have to marry them. Don't have to bring them in my house. And what if I extended the first olive branch, so to speak? An olive branch of understanding, an olive branch of compassion. And to prioritize, number 5 is to prioritize cultivating my own inner peace. to do something to bring myself a speck of serenity today, a moment of tranquility, whether it's listening to bird songs, taking a little walk, letting the sun come in on my face, something that will absolutely cultivate a tranquil sense of peace in me, a serenity in me that will not come if I do not practice, particularly in the pressure cooker we're in right now. And then number 6 is to serve others without expecting anything in return. Byron Katie used to call it to do random acts of kindness, and if you get caught, you have to start over. So 3 random acts of kindness per day without disclosing it, without talking about it, without letting everybody know what good deeds you did today, for somebody or something that cannot give back to you, may not even know you. So for nothing in return. So see if some of those could get your tail wagging enough to give it a go. To say, I'm going to do some random acts of kindness and not get caught. And if I get caught, I got to start over and got to do 3 a day. See if you can have a little fun with that. All right, Reverend Denise, come on in. Oh, Dan's got his hand up, honey. Go ahead. And then Denise, to you, honey.
A brief, I call that what you just said, my secret agent mode. I'm out on a mission and no one's going to see it. But I did something, and I often say to one of my favorites, Miss Lewis up there, our prayer chaplain, I said, tell her, thank you for all the things I know you did, and thank you for all the things no one ever knows that you did. Thank you. And I've told her several times that.
Great example, honey. Yeah, thank you.
So if you look at this chapter, there is a statement right in the beginning of this chapter called Reflections of Light that says, at the deepest level of our spiritual identity, all of us are perfect creations of God. I want you to listen to that again for me, just a second. At the deepest level of our spiritual identity, all of us are perfect creations of God. Perfect creations of God. So what's the first thing that comes up when you hear, I am a perfect creation of God? What comes up for anybody? Just breathe into that for a minute. Karen, unmute yourself.
What comes up for me was, as a child, myself, being in the neighborhood, I would go to all the different elderly people that lived in my neighborhood. I was always at their house after dinner or around dinner. We ate early. So after that, I was always walking the neighborhood and I was chatting with everybody there. But I just felt like this happiest little girl because I felt like I knew that my visit meant something to them. Some of them never saw anybody else. They would tell me everything, and I'd come home to my family and tell them, and they would say, good Lord, Karen, do you tell everybody else as much as they tell you about us? So you tell them about our lives like they tell you. And I would say, I just feel like their friend. And I think then I felt I didn't have all the other things all over me all the time. I just felt very free to be very loving as a little child.
Mm-hmm. And so what happens to us as we mature and forget that we are perfect creations of God? How does that happen? How do we forget?
Probably comparing ourselves to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And what am I?
Mm-hmm.
Marion's hands up.
Marion, got to unmute yourself, darling.
learning. Did I get it?
Mhm.
You mute me, but I have to unmute me. I'm learning. We forget who we are and we start, like she said, think about others, but we buy into what they're telling us because it's right there at us instead of staying focused on what really is the truth. That we're
Mhm.
spiritual beings having a human adventure.
Mhm. Jill or Dan, one of you, unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. There you go.
I was in a therapy session one time with a group of people, and people were giving us feedback. And the only feedback I heard was the negative feedback.
Mm.
And there was only a couple out of 12, 15 people that had negative feedback. But that's what I heard. And I had a friend that stayed with, and she said, okay, let's go around the circle. What did this person say? I couldn't remember. What did this person say? I couldn't remember. What did this person say? That was negative. I remembered exactly what they said. So I think that is, for me, a characteristic that I have maybe carried over from religion in the early days, but it's still something I have to fight against.
Well, and you know what comes up for me, Jill, us both being teachers in the past, is the educational system in our world kind of does that to us also. You get a paperback and you look at all the red marks. What did I do wrong? Instead of what did I do right? We've set ourselves up that kind of way. So I'm going to give you an assignment to do between now and next week, because this chapter is called Reflections of Light. And where you get a reflection of light is when you look at yourself in the mirror. So I'm going to ask everyone to spend a little bit of time every day, might be in the morning, might be at night, looking into your own eyes in the mirror and seeing what you see. And I'm going to read something that you can also read, but I just want you to hear it right now. It's on page 97 if you want to find it in the book. But it's called Your Holiness. And if you remember, last month, Dr. Judy's song that we sang going into meditation was, I am holy, only goodness comes from me. And I had many people over that month have conversations with me about they had a really hard time singing that song because they did not feel that they were holy and that only goodness came from them. So I just want you to listen to this. Your holiness reverses all the laws of the world. It is beyond every restriction of time, space, distance, and limits of any kind. Your holiness is totally unlimited in its power because it establishes you as a son of God at one with the mind of his creator. Through your holiness, the power of God is made manifest. Through your holiness, the power of God is made available. And there is nothing the power of God cannot do. Your holiness then can remove all pain, can end all sorrow, and can solve all problems. It can do so in connection with yourself and with anyone else. It is equal in its power to help anyone because it is equal in its power to save anyone. If you are holy, so is everything God created. You are holy because all things he created are holy, and all things he created are holy because you are. Now just breathe and tell me what you heard in that. And would you be able to read that and look at your own eyes in the mirror and know that that's the truth? What's coming up for anyone right now?
I can see it fleetingly
Okay.
myself, and it catches me sometimes and grabs me, and I remember, and then I get distracted, and
Mhm.
and I suffer, or I'm wounded, or something happens, or
Mhm.
I become angry, or I become fearful, or whatever. But I do see it. I do see it, and just and it's so powerful, and just to hear the words is so. I mean, it just like whew, just like opens the cage doors or something when you
Mhm.
think that.
Mhm. Thank you, Stephanie. I have the same experience. Reverend Ron?
I hear this as absolute truth. And I relate it to how I see the divine realm that we will all join our loved ones in at some point. That uh, I just feel like this is the real kingdom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jill?
And
Dan? Somebody.
it's Jill and Jan. What came up for me was something that's in a Disappearance of the Universe, which is a Course in Miracles oriented book. And in it, it has, I think it's the 13th chapter. It has a meditation in which you just go into a meditation space and you put whatever genuinely feels like you're in the presence of God, whether it's a burning bush, just a light, or whatever, just a knowing. But just being there and saying, the only thing I need to know is that I love you,
Mm.
that you love me. Everything else is irrelevant.
Mhm.
I know that you love me and I love you. And then let the words go away and just be in that space with that. And it's kind of like it represents something. What is my identity at the point that I was created? There was that experience of I am here and I feel your love of God, and that I love is in my nature at
Mhm.
the moment. So
Mhm.
it's like I am. The first thing it says is it's like one of the other weird, of course, weird things come in my mind, uh, and that is I am not a Toyota. I drive a Toyota. I am not this
Mhm.
body. I'm not, and there's things that I've done over this life, but that's not necessarily a reflection of that prime moment. I am a child creation of God, and He loves me, or God loves me, and I love
Mhm.
be
Mhm.
in the pureness of that as much as I can, and get an identity of a notion of who I am.
Mhm. Which is what I believe our friend Jesus came to share with us. And unfortunately, some of us have pushed against him because of some sort of baggage we have. And that's a forgiveness work for us ourselves to remember that he just came to remind us of that reflection of light that is in our own eyes. Alan, I believe you had your hand up.
Well, you caught me, teacher. Yeah, it's not. Excuse me. Well, then you just said something. I'm going to go to what I wrote a note last week, and then I'll go back to what I was going to talk about. I wrote, Jesus realized and recognized the truth and shares with us as we live the divine yearning for truth in our Christ nature, which pretty much, he got it and he's helped us, shared it with us. And back, what I was thinking about back when we go back to the holy thing, it's an exercise I use, and it's brief daily. When I start to, how should I say, lose my patience, with the situation or individuals. I practice it in a longer state, but I just remember that I am holy and they are holy. And I actually wrote down, I am holy, you are holy, we are holy. There's a song coming out of that one. But so in my meditations, when grounding myself, I remember I am holy. Remember that I am a creation of God and God. And I focus on that, and I am overcome with love, which I recognize as the power of the universe. And it's almost like a physical electric charge in me, emanating from my heart as I'm in this. I've just got what we used to call God bumps now. Just talking about it is this love, realizing that I'm part of it, and which is what I am holy says. And so I use that because in my environment where I work, it's easy to get. I work in Home Depot, and it's easy to lose your patience with people sometimes. So I bring that up and realize, that you never look into the eyes of somebody that God doesn't love. And then that kind of brings me back to it.
And that includes your own eyes.
Yeah, well, I'll be finding that out in the mirror. Yeah.
Yes, you will. Deb, I believe you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I'm kind of now building on what Alan just said. When you started in this section, I truly at my core believe I am a perfect creation of God. I believe I'm holy. I don't live that like every day. I do all kinds of bad things to myself and say bad things. But what struck me first was how much opportunity I have to see that in everyone else. And as everyone says, oh, in this political environment, I'm like, well, I'm not counting a whole lot of other people as perfect creations or very holy right now. And that's a big opportunity for me to revisit. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there was one other person that had a hand up, but I don't know who that might have been. Marion, unmute yourself, darling. There you go.
Press Alt-8. Okay. Let's talk about sort of what she was talking about. We try to go out before the pandemic, we haven't been out as much, but when we would go into a store, we always made sure that the person that we interacted with, that we left a smile on their face. And I was going to ask the question I have now with, like you said, with the political situation like it is, which I never thought would be this way in my life, I find I'm having to really work because I see the evil that is there. And the person may be just like all of us, one with God. But how do we look to that and see, but I behold the Christ spirit that's really within you, because it isn't coming out and it's getting worse. How do we do that?
Well, I would think that song that we heard would be one way.
Okay.
When Martha kept reading, oh, what peace we often forfeit.
Maybe you could
I have forfeited some of my peace through news, oh, what needless pain we bear. There's not really anything that I personally think I can do about what's going on in Washington, D.C., but I can do what's going on inside my own heart. I can do something about that.
That's what I'm doing. I just saying prayers. Thank you.
And Karen, I don't know if you had your hand up, but I have thought about your sweet little girl self. And it's interesting that as children, we remember on some level, whether we even say that we're the Christed being, we remember, and then it's like how beautiful that is. And then it eventually kind of starts falling away as the world kind of comes in on us. Karen, what's coming up for you?
I was talking to a Jewish friend of mine today, and we were talking about someone that we both know that has, in business, has been somewhat of a disappointment, but yet is excellent at what they do. And in personal things, had done something with this person. So it was a mutual person. But we both said, despite that, we hold on to that part that's good with him, because it's almost like with your child, and they do something, no matter what they do that's just irritating for a minute, there's just a love inside there that you shift right back into. And I think that with our friends today, I saw us both going, we're both going for the good in him. We're both going to hold him to that, because that's who we truly see him as. And I thought, well, how nice that we can see him that way. But then it's like Deb was saying a minute ago, is that when I see some things that are written down on some of the things politically right now and stuff, it's just like, oh, it's just, gosh. And we want to see that. We do want to see that. It's almost like you're having to fake it till you make it. Speak to that a little bit, because sometimes that doesn't feel real authentic to me when I'm acting like, oh, you're okay. I'm like really thinking, God bless you.
Yes, I hear you. I think that the thing that I would caution us all to not do is what I have called for years metaphysical malpractice, which means we just affirm it all away. And I do believe that this book is calling us to feel our feelings and then to take them in prayer in a different way. And that's what you're going to hear from me over the next few months on Sunday morning. It's like we have to acknowledge our feelings. And then, just as this song said, we don't have to needlessly carry the pain. We can release that. But it's a process. It's a process. It's a practice. We talked Sunday about practicing, and we have to just keep practicing and practicing and practicing and remind each other. We say at Unity of Nashville, we are remembering and nurturing and practicing the divinity within each of us in community. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing here, is just remembering and nurturing and practicing.
Denise, somebody named that's showing up here is labeled as Dives. I don't know what your name is. I saw you Sunday, and I'm glad to see you.
Yes.
Had a question, if you can unmute, and then we've got 3 in line.
Yes, we do have some in line too. Yes, Dives.
Thank you very much. The email I come in on that I can get onto Zoom is my work email, and our work email is first initial last name. So anyway, I'm David, and I don't know if I can ever get it to show up there or not, but I will claim to be the Dives of Drivers Lives, which is my claim.
Yes.
Okay. I just had acknowledged that I let myself miss most of that and got caught up in trying to find the words in the book to follow along. And as a result of that, I only got a little bit of the words. I think I got the concept, and I'm reading the book, and I'll find it in there. But I let myself, or I distracted myself, I guess, enough of it by looking for it and not listening to it.
Page 97, you're talking about the prayer, the holiness prayer?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I will get that. Thank you so much.
I don't know if there's a certain order, but I see you in the order on my screen. So the Jill Spearing, whether it's Jill or Dan, and then Lysia, and then Paul.
I think one of the things Jesus says is responding to the thing, what do you do with all that's going on in the world? And Jesus' answer that I get from the Course is, there's only 2 things. There's love. Someone is being loving, or they're calling.
Yes.
Love. So
calling for love.
Want to witness you being an example of love, so that they can get a hint of what it would be to be that in this moment as well. That's the only 2 choices that. Anyway, that's.
And I love that, Dan. And some days I forget. I don't know about you, but some days I'm like, okay, did I remember that person was calling for love, or did I just think they were showing their tail to me? So Lysia, unmute yourself, darling.
Am I on?
You're on. Yes.
Okay. I am so grateful, Reverend Denise, that you talked about feeling your feelings, and Dan, by talking about a model of what that love might feel like or look like. I think that was kind of where he was coming from. When I was very, very, very little, I had a sister who was autistic and had cerebral palsy, and I was probably a year older than her. And but she was abused terribly in the household. Our family system was very strict. And I never could put words to the love I felt in my heart for her, but I know that was the pureness of who I am. I never didn't know and believe I was that love. I just didn't have words for it, mostly because my experiences growing up were so emotionally fraught with people talking out of both sides of their mouth that words didn't mean a lot to me after a while, but how I felt in the presence of someone did. So as often as I could be involved with someone, and like Dr. Carol Neal, one of my very first spiritual teachers, when I saw her, I said, that must be what Jesus is like. But it was not the words, it was the feeling. And I think when you're not allowed to have your feelings in general, I don't think you lose them, the love. You may be afraid to be angry at something, talk about something, but you can always depend on, I always depended on the fact that I couldn't put it into words, but I loved deeply. I never met a stranger like Karen. I could go around that neighborhood and adopt every senior myself too. That's just who I am. And it never got lost on me. So my struggle throughout and this book and in reading these words about God is your life and you are this, is the words, the verbiage, more than anything. But it does not detract from the sensitivity and tenderness of my heart that remains consistent. It's just, I'm not always sure that I don't, I can't sometimes find that moment of feeling that I'll react to something. But that's the programming I grew up in. It was the way you handled something to get through it. And so I don't mean to sound so broken, but I want to put it together. I want to put what I've always felt like a child and never lost it together with the words that I read so that it becomes a wholeness in me. And I'm not blocking the quality and quantity of the healthy verbiage when I hear it. So if I hear a song, sometimes the word God will get on it'll really upset me. And, because God was scary to a Southern Baptist little girl.
Yeah.
Things like that sometimes. And when your parents just talk bad things and about God, and then you hear good things about things, you get confused. So my intention with this book, with watching The Chosen, which I adore, with being around all of you, is that I see and feel the consistency of this love in my heart that I've always known. And I don't think it's not true for each of us. We always have known. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Licia, for sharing. Paul, I think you're next, and then Unity of Nashville, Marcia.
As Karen was talking, and that resonated with me a lot, it reminded me everybody has a perspective, and most often we choose the perspective that we have. Sometimes we forget that this person is Jesus in a different form. I mean, and it made me think, how do we think the Pharisees perceived Jesus himself? They thought
probably not too well.
Exactly. He was saying things contrary to what they had been taught their whole lives. He was tearing down their religion, and so they didn't they were reacting from their programming, and but also think of the Holy Spirit is the pure essence, the pure spirit of God. And since that pure spirit of God is within us and is part of us, it makes me think, are we being our authentic, our pure spirit when we are out in public and when we're looking at other people? Are we being authentic to ourselves? And I think when I look in the mirror and do this exercise and ask myself and look in my eyes and say, am I being my authentic self? Now, not just my God self, but the self that is true to who I am as the person I am in this life? Or am I not being pure, being an unholy spirit by following my programming, which we often don't even understand that component.
Right.
So, we have to have a little grace when we look in the mirror too, because
Most definitely. Yes. Marcia? Unmute.
Sorry, there I am. Okay. This conversation is really good for me. And it has brought up a lovely writing by Mother Teresa that I remember a lot, of the final analysis. And the main focus that I have ever gotten from Course in Miracles was that what Dan shared is either love or calling for love. And in the final analysis, putting that with it, I can't control one hair thing of other people, of politics, of economy, of cultures, of wars. The one thing that I have anything to do with is me. And what if be love? That's all I can control. And my mind gets in the way of that. But if I can do that, and it's not about them, it's not about anything anybody does. What I'm to do is to be me, as true as I can be, with my God self in this expression of my human body. That's all I can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else right now coming up for anyone? Joan? Can you unmute yourself?
Unmute.
There you go.
All right. What Marcia said reminded me, well, I had two things that kept coming up for me tonight, and I appreciated everything that everyone shared. One is, I had a dear friend that I taught with, and she came from a huge family. I think there were 8 or 9 kids. And she said that her father, she would see her father take one of the sisters or brothers by the shoulders and look them in the face and say, "You are my perfect child. I love you so much." And she said, we all knew that he said that to every one of us. It wasn't that person, it was all 9 of them that had heard him say that to them. And whenever I think of God's perfect love, I think of that story she told me. And what a wonderful blessing to grow up in a family that had a lot of chaos because their mother was bipolar.
Right.
But to hear the father say that over and over again to each one of the children at one time or another. And the other thing that came up to me with Marcia was, I think one of my favorite sayings, I think it's in the Course in Miracles, because I studied it several years ago, is teach only love, for that is what you are. Isn't that a Course in Miracles saying?
Yes, yes, yes.
And the first time I visited Kansas City and the temple in Kansas City, the Unity Temple, the sanctuary where they had Buddhist meditation every Sunday before they had the Unity service was a smaller sanctuary, and you go into it, and that's what it said up at the front: teach only love.
Wow.
Yeah.
How wonderful.
Thank you all for being here and being who you are.
You know, I think the other piece that comes up for me around all of this is, yes, I have forgiveness work, a lot of forgiveness work. My mother is one of my pieces that I have to work on almost daily with her. But the biggest piece of forgiveness work I'm doing now is with myself. And it's understanding that I've held things against people for years. And I'm like, okay, can I just let that go? And what about me would want to hold something against somebody for years? You know? So the forgiveness of the self is probably as important, if not more important, because I believe fully in the universal principle, as within, so without. And I believe as I continue to do my work, the world in front of me will change. But I have to do my work. I have to be willing to do that every day. So, Marcia, are you the one that put "do it anyway," Mother Teresa, in the chat, or was that Martha?
I put it in there. She referenced.
Cool. Yes. Martha, you want to read through that for us? That's profound to me.
I will, and everybody's on mute again, so I'm going to encourage you to engage with this and just open to some embodiment of it. So I'll read it and then ask you to repeat something with us. So we'll see what we get from it. People are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Do it anyway. Can you repeat that? Do it.
Do it anyway.
Anyway.
Do it anyway. People are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered, especially now. Do it anyway. Forgive them anyway. Forgive them. They're unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. Can you say that? Forgive them.
Forgive them anyway.
Forgive them anyway. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway.
Be kind anyway.
If you're successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway.
Succeed anyway.
Succeed anyway.
Succeed anyway.
If you're honest and frank, people may cheat you. People will cheat you. If you're honest and frank, people will cheat you sometimes. Some people will cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway.
Be honest and frank anyway.
Anyway. What you spend years building. What you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway.
Build anyway.
Build anyway.
Build anyway.
If you find serenity and happiness, Some of them will be jealous. If you live serenity and you live happiness, some of them will be jealous. Be happy anyway.
Be happy anyway.
Happy anyway. As happy as you can be. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. The good you do today, the good you did today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway.
Do good anyway.
Anyway.
Do it anyway. Forgive them anyway. Be kind anyway. Any way you can be kind. Be kind anyway. Succeed any way you can. Be honest and frank anytime, any way you can. Build it anyway. Do good anyway. Be happy any way you can, anytime you can. Do it anyway. Sounds easy, don't it? I also put in the chat, there's an interview with Marianne Williamson about the book, about the mystic Jesus. And it's an audio, you can listen to it in podcast or watch it on the video, and it's about an hour and a half. So that's also in the chat if any of you could get an uplift from that, or you want to take the teaching a little bit further and hear directly from her what she said and what she meant by what she wrote.
So any other comments or questions or things on your heart that you want to share? We've got about 10 minutes left or so. Joan?
That's what. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. All right. This chapter was about reflections of light.
Mm-hmm.
And what occurred to me was when I first started listening in on the class, nobody could see me because all the light was behind me. And as it got darker out there and my face was reflecting the light in front of me, now you can see me.
Right.
And so if we remember to turn toward the light, then we see a truer reflection of ourselves.
Thank you, Joan.
If there's no questions, Denise, I've got a poem I wrote when I turned 50 that we could read here and maybe have a little meditation with it if you're open to that.
I think that's wonderful. Yes.
And the poem is called I Forgive. And it's written as a letter to God. So if this is meaningful to you, to close your eyes if you want to or not, if you can feel safe and present there, your hand on your heart, and receive it any way you can. Dear God, I forgive you. 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 Forgive you, God, for hiding yourself so cleverly in seeds of doubt and weeds of pain. I forgive you, 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 I forgive you for hiding yourself inside those experiences I could not embrace. I forgive you, 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 I forgive you. God, I forgive you, even though it was I who misunderstood. even though it was I who misunderstood. I forgive you. I forgive me, 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 I forgive me. And I know now that you are there. And I'm on to you. I'm on to you, God, in your way. I forgive me, 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 I forgive me. I forgive me, I forgive me, I forgive me, I forgive me, I forgive me. My way or God's way? One hurts, one doesn't. I forgive me, 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 I forgive me. I forgive me, I forgive me, I forgive me. And after forgiving 70 times 70 and 65 years, it is a beginning. It's a beginning. I wrote it and I was turning 50, which is 15 years ago. And it's in the chat if you want a copy of it. And anything you want to say about that or question or any way you can be uplifted as we come to the close tonight, that anything you want to be witnessed in, anything you want to say or question, the field's open here for that.
Alicia? Unmute yourself, darling.
Okay. I thank you so much for that poem, because I couldn't see God in all the dark horror. That is so profound in my mind and my heart right now, because I thought God wasn't there and I had to do it all by myself. And that poem is so beautiful. And so that makes a lot of difference to me. Thank you so very much for sharing that.
You're welcome, honey. I'm glad it found a home in you. Yeah. Many of you may or may not resonate with having to forgive God, but I have held God responsible. As a small child, I often question God. Like, if you're the creator, then why wouldn't you just shake your Etch-a-Sketch and redraw this?
Yeah.
You know, if you're almighty, it ain't that big a deal for you just to shake this up and start over. And if you don't mind while you're at it, leave out the suffering this time around.
Yes, 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 yes.
I've had a lot of opinions to put over on God. And I live turnarounds through cognitive behavioral therapy. Byron Katie's questionings help me with it. So if I'm believing God should redraw her Etch-a-Sketch, his Etch-a-Sketch, guess who's got to redraw her Etch-a-Sketch? Me.
Me.
And I've got to include this fantasy that I was believing, that there wasn't going to be losses and challenges and wars in the world, and redraw my Etch-a-Sketch based in the solid reality of what is. That the world we're in, the human form, includes all the physical laws. That includes losses, grief, suffering, sadness, despair, irritations, frustrations, cheating, lying, deceit, abuse, molestation, bankruptcy, all matters of losses. And it was my misunderstanding that caused my pain, and an innocent fantasy that I set up as a kid about what ought to be, what could be, what should be. And the more I resist what is, the more mad at God I get, the less and less relationship I get to have with God. So my relationship with God is on a different footing, and I still have tantrums and shake my fist. And then through devotion and practice, surrender, faith and willingness, wisdom, to back up again and to see I cannot know anything about what's good or bad or what all this means. In this dimension, I will never comprehend it. And I cannot have any peace or create what I want to create in this dimension if I stay mad and irritated and frustrated and jacked up and anxious and righteous and indignant. I'm creating more in the world every single day that I pray and sing and claim I want to end in the world.
Mhm.
So it's real, and it's a full-time job for me. And practice makes
Perfect.
Progress.
Progress.
Practice makes progress.
Uh-huh.
We're going in the direction of a new way of being. And what an honor it is to take a journey with y'all and
Mhm.
to witness each other as we crawl out of these old skins and step into a literal new way of being with all that is, with what is. And it was referenced tonight. Some of us are watching the movie. It's on all sorts of streaming devices called The Chosen.
The Chosen.
And there's four seasons of it with about 8 episodes each. And it is a depiction of the life of Jesus from his days and picking his disciples and their journey together and that. So it's been transformational for me.
Mhm.
Me too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else before we close?
You are precious, Martha Craig.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you, honey.
Thank you. Thank you, please.
Wonderful.
Thank you all for being here.
Yes, we will see you all next week.
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
all.
Good night. Blessings
Thank you,
to you all.
everybody.
Blessings.
Good night.
Oh.
Marcia, you want to stop the recording, honey? So we get okay.
Can I ask a question real quick? Just last week we talked about the grace prayer.
Yes.
Is that a